Now, campaigners have launched a legal battle to overturn a ban stopping two of the UK's biggest drill artists from performing. Terrell Doyley and Joshua Malinga, known as Skengdo X AM, have been given a suspended 9-month jail sentence for breaching an interim gang injunction. Police said their music incited violence amongst gang rivals. Well, we're joined by Dr. Adam Elliott-Cooper, a researcher at King's College London, part of the campaign supporting the rappers. Good to see you this morning. As far as the law is concerned, this injunction has been issued. They have broken it. Therefore, shouldn't there be penalties?
I think what's important here is that an injunction was issued in the first place. Rather than these young people being identified as inciting violence specifically, they've been identified as young people who are naming specific people, places, events, anything like that. And I think there's a real question of civil liberties, there's a real question of artistic expression, and there's a real question the public should be asking as to whether this really makes our streets safer.
So you don't think an injunction to stop inciting violence in itself is a problem?
No, I certainly... I think that inciting violence certainly isn't necessarily the problem. I think the problem is the fact that the injunction is so broad that even naming names, people, places, events, anything like that, so it's such a broad injunction upon these young people.
But do you accept the premise, though, that the music which is, you know, covered by this injunction would incite violence?
I don't think there is very much concrete evidence that this kind of music incites violence, and in fact I don't think there's any evidence at all that preventing young people from artistic or creative expression makes our streets any safer at all.
And these young men, Skengdo as they're known as a duo, do they identify as being members of a gang or not?
I think whether they identify as being in a gang or not it might be part of the problem, but it might not be.
Well, that's central to the issue, isn't it?
I think that whether these people identify as being in a collective or in a gang or in a group of people, or as many people do, doesn't necessarily mean that they've committed an offence or a violent offence, which is what these custodial sentences are about.
Well, Detective Inspector Luke Williams of Lambeth and Southwark's Gangs Unit, he said, where intelligence identifies somebody as a member of a gang and the requirements of the Policing and Crime Act are met, we will seek to obtain gang injunctions to suppress serious violence across the capital. Okay. So it is relevant if they're members of a gang.
Well, according to the police, it's relevant if they're members of a gang. But if these young people have not committed any offences, they've not committed any violent offences, they've not incited violence against any other people, then in fact stopping them from performing their music, their creative expression, is an impediment of their civil liberties, and there is no evidence.
But one of their tracks, Attempted, it does make reference to people being stabbed.
There are lots of songs that make references to people being stabbed. There are lots of films that make references to people being stabbed. There are lots of operas that make references to people being stabbed. That does not mean that we should stop people from expressing those things. Our civil liberties say that even if we disagree with someone articulating something, we should not be able to stop them from making those kinds of expressions and saying those types of things unless it contravenes one of our laws.
But what is the benefit then of if this junction didn't exist, of allowing them to perform with lyrics that some people are concerned about? Is there any benefit to allowing young people to express themselves in that way?
I think defending the civil liberties of this country is probably the greatest benefit of allowing young people to express themselves in the same way as anyone else should be. And I think the most important thing here is there is no evidence that this makes our streets any safer at all. These young people have not committed any violent offences, they have not incited violence, so therefore there is no evidence this makes our streets safer. This is not a good use of police time, and this is not going to make our young people safer on the streets.
OK. Adam, there we've got to leave it. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
OK, stay with us here on Sunrise Sport, heading away in just a moment. Morning, Gail.